Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar series on AI interviews. Today's topic is going to be contextualizing AI for better output. How can we leverage background information and additional metadata to make the probes smarter for AI moderated interviews? So why does context matter for AI moderation? Context matters because it provides background knowledge for the AI moderator, and it can really allow for the moderator to go deeper and probe in a way such that it actually understands who the participant is and what are some of the key questions that should be answered through the AI moderated interview. We're going to cover what are some of the considerations around not providing context. And also at the end of the webinar, we're going to show you two different AI moderated interviews. I'm going to be the participant and go through those two interviews just to show you what the difference is if you provide context to the AI moderator versus not. So what are the risks of not providing enough context? There aren't failures of intelligence, but failures of context for AI moderators because it is tuned to behave based on the instructions that you provide them. So the interactions, the probes, as well as the creativity that the AI moderator uses is dependent upon the knowledge that you provide. The AI really has no idea of what your project is about or what you're really looking for. So providing specifically the roles, excuse me, the learning objectives, the hypothesis, and the constraints around what your project and your research is going to be about is absolutely critical for the AI moderator to actually behave and interview the participants in the way that you want them to. And without the backstory, the model plays it safe. It just creates generic, vague, or maybe overly broad responses. And there are cases where this is helpful if you're trying to do very high-level discovery research. But if you are geared towards finding very specific answers from your participants and the audience that you're trying to get feedback from, we do recommend providing as much context as possible for the AI moderator to work in the way that you envision it to work. So why does it matter? Just as a recap, probes or follow-up questions that uncover deeper insights. They're not necessarily provided verbatim within the discussion guide, but it allows for the AI moderator to go a little bit deeper and understand the reason behind some of the responses that the participants are providing. And really, smart probing is what you want. You want the AI moderator to really understand the context, have a good knowledge of why this research is being run and what the interview is purposed to find out. And the smart probing can really adapt to the participants' goals, their role, as well as their task to make sure that it can get to the right answers as quickly as possible and do so while collecting deep insights that you wouldn't be able to collect unless it's a conversational interview. Well, contextually aware questions save time. So instead of trying to ask questions to understand who the participant is and what their role is, that information can help you reduce the amount of time that the AI moderator can take to really get to the core questions that you're supposed to get the responses for. And richer probing is always a very strong asset that AI moderation can bring. So it can reveal edge cases, pain points and unmet needs if it's structured well, and the AI moderator can have enough information to be able to, get into the rich probing. So what is the real anatomy of a smart probe? This may be a little bit intuitive, but it's basically context gathering, like having the background information around the company, the industry, who the participant is, what their role is, like all that stuff getting provided through the discussion guide. Then the AI moderator actually processing that to be able to build its own prompt engine and ask insightful questions as it moves forward is what we view to be the ideal anatomy of a smart probe. And really, we wanted to kind of level set on what this means in the context of Hubble. So as we've covered in many previous sessions, we provide a way for you to customize a discussion guide for the AI moderators. And context, in the case of Hubble's AI moderators, has a couple of caveats. So one, the base AI moderation model that we're using is already tuned so that it behaves like a researcher. So it has, upholding guardrails and privacy to avoid PIIs. It is already instructed to ask non-leading neutral questions. And its persona is structured as a researcher so that it can actually ask questions, interview people, wearing the researcher hat and talking like they are a UX researcher or a market researcher. So grounding the follow-ups in that available context is something that is also provided. So but depending on the context that you provide, it's going to take that knowledge and really continue to ask the questions like that. However, these default prompts and the tuning that we've done is not enough if you want to create more customizations or go a little bit more specific. So first, if you want varying styles and tone, right? So depending on who the participant is or what the context of the research is, if you want different styles of tone or like how you want them to kind of present themselves, that's something that definitely can be customized. And then also, depending on the scope and the goal, there could be instances where you're a little bit, focused more on discovery, on broader discovery, which allows for you to provide a more generic context so that the AI moderator can actually go through the layers and find out the information by themselves. Or you could go if it's a research that is more focused on usability, it will actually be more useful to provide as much context as possible around what the question is or like what is the key ask for the AI moderator. And then if there's unique interaction preferences, hey, like, don't probe more than two questions, or, please go as deep as you want to be able to find out the answers to the key questions. These are some, the variances that you can have around the style of how the AI moderator actually probes and probes dynamically. So those would be some considerations to think about as you're looking into how Hubble's AI moderator can behave. So here are some tips on how to provide context effectively. Number one, and again, this is more kind of grounded on the types of interviews that would be more specific around like a specific problem, feature, or an idea they want to get feedback from with a defined audience. Number one is defining who you are, and in this case, who is who the participant is, right? So what's your role, domain expertise and research perspective. Like really understanding who the participant is going to be really important for the AI moderator to avoid questions that are more discovery based. Clarifying your goal. What are you trying to learn? What are some of the things that you want to achieve through the interview? What are some of the insights that you're looking to synthesize? I think is going to be gold for the AI moderator to actually work in your favor. And then study details. What is this study about? Is it foundational? Is it evaluable? Is it attitudinal, behavioral? And what are the scopes and constraints? Like this information is absolutely critical, and providing these details will ensure that the AI moderators know what you're trying to really get through, present, and what types of insights you're trying to collect through the sessions. Prioritizing and condensing is important. Instead of just data dumping and copy pasting general ideas, I think feeding relevant background information and making sure that the AI moderator can really stay crisply focused on the area that you're interested in is going to be important. And then guardrails. As we mentioned, we have these things built in already, but privacy notes, making sure to not collect PII. If there's a specific brand voice that you like to emphasize, that is important, non-leading stance. All these things are just usable out of the box, but I think if there's more customizations that you want to have around the guardrails, it's something that you should think about. And then optionally, you can include key verbatim questions that need to be addressed through the discussion guide formats that we've covered in previous webinars. Now how you can add key questions and structure your interview guides or in a format so that you can have the key questions, and then what are some of the probing ideas that you can include as a follow-up. But yeah, if there's any questions that you really want the AI moderator to cover, we do recommend including that in your discussion guide. So here I'm going to go through two demos. One is going to be a more generic AI moderator interview around how participants use product analytics. And then the second one is going to be a heavily contextualized interview where we provide a persona. We're going to say, okay, Brian is a marketer that is using Amplitude, and I want the AI moderator to explore how I use Amplitude and my work as a marketer. So without further ado, I'm going to proceed with the contextualizing demo. Let me just share my screen, and then let's go to. Okay, so I'm going to proceed with the demo now. Let's get started. So this one is the one that doesn't have context, it's more generic, discovery. I'm going to show you the prompts in the discussion guide afterwards as well. So continue, started.
Thank you for joining me today. Could you start by telling me a little bit about your role and how you typically approach your work?
Yeah, I'm a product marketer. I basically keep track of our marketing campaigns and their efficacy, and also how much we're spending in each channel and what their ROI is or ROAS is, to be able to optimize our marketing spend across the company.
Got it. That sounds like a role that involves a lot of tracking and analyzing. Can you tell me a bit more about how you measure the efficacy of those campaigns? What kind of metrics or data points do you typically look at?
Yeah, so we keep track of customer acquisition costs across different channels. So our main ones are social, as well as search. So those two campaigns are the ones that I keep track of. Basically, on a regular time interval, we see what our customer acquisition costs are, see how they're trending, whether it's improving or declining, and then also we mirror that with the LTV and the overall lifetime value that we're generating on a per customer or per cohort. And then with that data, we try to understand whether our marketing spend is going, is getting spent in the right way.
For explaining that. So it sounds like you're looking at both acquisition costs and lifetime value to gauge how effective the campaigns are. Could you tell me a bit more about any challenges you face when you're trying to optimize that spending?
Yeah, so some of the challenges are, I think right now, because of the traffic that we're getting through LLMs, search, I think, has been a little bit in a fluctuation, understanding really well like what our performance is, not just based on Google search, but also based on the inbound that we get through LLM search. I think understanding that and analyzing that has been, not the easiest. There's a little bit of moving parts, so I think that's a little bit challenging. And then also in social, I think just being able to work through different platforms and then make sure that we're kind of comparing things in apples to apples ways across TikTok, across Instagram, all those different platforms has been definitely a piece of work. But overall, I would say, it is doable and it is fine.
That makes sense. So, with the rise of LLM based search traffic and then balancing data across different social platforms, you're dealing with a lot of complexity. How do you typically handle pulling all that data together to make sense of it? Are there any tools or processes you rely on?
Yeah, so I go on Google Analytics a lot. That's where we keep track of all the, regular, analytics based stuff. And then also Amplitude is another platform that I hop onto to be able to track our cohorts, our LTV, and then also be able to look through our performance across time, like in a time series. So like looking at like our cohorts across time and then how they are, trending relative to the acquisition costs. I would say that's pretty much it.
Great to know. So it sounds like you're leaning on tools like Google Analytics and Amplitude to track those cohorts and time series data. I'm curious, when you're looking at that data, how do you decide what adjustments to make to your campaigns? What's that process like for you?
There's no steadfast rule, but I would say that we look at the campaigns, we see whether we should, A/B test our creative or if you should try to change the copy. We also see if there's any fluctuations or movements in our data, whether it be with the CAC or whether it be with, the conversions or the click-through rates. And then based on all that, we try to make a decision whether we should make an adjustment or not. So there isn't like a single thing that we look at, but I think every time we're trying to create tests, we're trying to do split testing and like do experiments to see which campaigns perform better and how we can optimize our spend.
It sounds like you're using a pretty iterative process, constantly testing and adjusting based on the results you see. Could you tell me about a time when you made a change based on those insights that had a really big impact?
Yeah, so we actually made a change to our TikTok campaigns because we saw that the acquisition cost there was significantly lower versus some of our other social channels. So after we shifted our budget more towards TikTok and we really created more iterations on our ad assets there, we ended up having a lot more success. And this was about a year and a half ago.
That's a great example of a shift that paid off. It sounds like being flexible with your budget and testing new creative really helped you optimize your spend. When you're making those decisions, is there anyone else on your team that you collaborate with closely? Or do you handle most of that analysis on your own?
I work with other marketers and then marketing analysts. We also have our like social managers that basically I interact with all the time. So it is a team effort versus just handling things myself.
So it's a collaborative process with different team members bringing their expertise. That makes sense for managing such a dynamic environment. Is there anything specific you'd say is your biggest challenge right now in your role, or something you're trying?
Yeah, I think for marketers is always about ROAS, right? What's the return? Like what's the revenue they're generating per, dollar spent on marketing? So, making sure that's as efficient as possible and we're improving there is a key concern that I have or something that keeps me up at night. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
That makes perfect sense. It sounds like return on ad spend is really your top priority. And making those incremental.
Nope, I think this is it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. I really appreciate it. Take care.
So that was an example of an AI moderated interview that is not contextualized. It was very generic, like, hey, what's your role? Like, what are you focused on? And then it goes, from top to really understand what I'm doing and what my focus is. Again, the topic was product analytics, like, well, how are you using product analytics at your work? But the moderator didn't have much context around what tool I'm using, who I am, etc. So we did spend a long time just like having the AI moderator try to understand who I am. So let's showing you this example as a contrast as basically an interview where the moderator knows I'm a marketer, knows I use Amplitude, and then we'll see how the interview goes.
Could you tell me a bit about how you and your team first began using Amplitude?
Yeah, we started using Amplitude. Oh, geez, I can't remember when, but it's been always our product analytics tool to be able to track our users, to be able to track key conversions, and also looking at things like our LTV over lifetime over like LTV over time, and then be able to do cohort analysis as well.
Got it. When your team first started using Amplitude, what were the main goals you were trying to achieve?
It wasn't really a goal-based adoption, I would say. We did just needed a product analytics tool, and then it became a really important tool across product and marketing, as well as product marketing, actually.
Got it. So it sounds like it gradually became essential across multiple teams. How do you typically use Amplitude now in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, so we are using Amplitude to be able to track our, key events. Also looking at our funnels, right? Looking at, tracking the cohorts and, really attributing the users to different acquisition channels and looking at how they're performing, what the payback is around the spend that we're making across that channel. All that data lives in Amplitude, so it's a very important platform for us.
That's really interesting. You mentioned tracking key events and cohorts. Could you walk me through an example of a specific report or dashboard you rely on regularly?
Yes, so I have a chart that basically analyzes what our trend is for our LTV, and then I'm able to kind of dissect that into the key primary channels of acquisition, which is social and search. So after I, click on that report, I'm able to see whether we're doing better or worse, or how things are trending overall.
Thanks for sharing that. When you see how things are trending, how does that typically influence the decisions you and your team make?
Yeah, well, it's all about like our blended costs. So we look at which channels are doing the best, which types of users are like high value users for us, and then we try to optimize our spend on that channel so that we can maximize the return on advertising spend. So it's basically a way for us to understand where we should be spending most, and like what are some of the levers that we can pull so that we're performing better as a company.
That makes sense. So you use those insights to fine tune your ad spend and strategy. I'm curious, how often do you find that the data?
I don't think it leads to like a shift, I would say. It's just a data tool and a tool that we use to evaluate to make our decisions. It doesn't, yeah, it's not like there's always like a significant shift in our approach. I think our approach is the same, and Amplitude is just a way for us to, continue to, um, just do our work and a data benchmark slash reference that we need to rely on.
That makes sense. So it's more of a continuous reference point rather than some.
All the PMs, marketers, product marketing's on there. We have a separate insights team as well and an analytics team, so they're on there as well.
Wow, that's quite a few teams using it. How do those different teams typically collaborate or share the insights they gather from Amplitude?
Well, we have cross-team dashboards and like analytics data visualizations that we look at. I'm not quite sure actually because I'm more focused on marketing, but I know that their product keeps track of their key KPIs like conversions, and there's like things that they want to kind of optimize on, whether it be signups or like subscriptions, whatever it is. So those are some of the ways that I think the product team uses Amplitude.
That makes sense, with each team focusing on their key metrics. Are there any challenges?
I would say not really. It's fairly collaborative. Although I would say that if it's not directly within your team, there is a little bit of a difficulty to like make sure people are really understanding what they're looking at. So, but I think as you iterate and you collaborate, continuously, you can teach them, how to look at your own dashboards and your charts and your tables. So, I wouldn't say it's too complicated.
It sounds like there's a learning curve, but collaboration makes it easier over time. I'm curious, are there?
No, not really. I mean, I would say the UX could be a little bit better. Sometimes the fonts are a little bit small, at least in my view. But I don't think there's any frustrations or problems. We're very happy with it.
That's great to hear that overall you're happy with it. Even small things like font size can impact usability, though.
No, I think that's it.
Thank you so much for sharing all that insight. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.
So as I demonstrated here, it is a there's two different ways to really run the interview. One with higher context, and then one without much context. And if just to show you an example of how this was customized, you can click on the discussion guide, and then you can see here that in the one without context, it wasn't provided a participant profile. It was a more broader strokes research goal, really understanding how the participant works and the analytics tool that they use. And the moderator had some basic instructions. So that was the example that you guys saw, the no context example. And the with context, basically, if you look at the discussion guide, it provides a little more detail. Hey, like understand how the participants are using Amplitude in their day-to-day work, identify workflows, pain points, and also how Amplitude influences decision-making across product marketing and strategy. And then it provides more details around what are the themes, the study details, adoption, current workflows, etc. And then I have to say, the no context one is still useful. If you want to be a little bit broader and like try to do a more kind of general like consumer study or things like that, you can still do these types of research where the AI moderator can like really understand who the user is, because that information can be important for the researcher. But if you have a very specific goal, if you have a persona, if you have a key set of questions that you want answers to, we do recommend structuring your prompts with as much context as possible so that the AI moderator can be enriched with that insight. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to questions. So I'll read them off. But before that, thank you so much for joining the session. Really appreciate everyone coming on, and we're going to continue with this series to really talk about different nuances and things that we need to achieve with AI moderators. So please stay tuned and let us know if you have any other questions. And really, if you want to explore this a little bit deeper, or if you have any questions about how you can use AI moderated interviews, please book a demo, schedule a demo, and talk to us so that we can help you with the AI moderator interviews. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to proceed to questions.